In my last video, I talked about stacks, and I basically was kind of like, I was speaking in very basic computer speak, but because I'm so advanced, like I feel like a general person wouldn't understand me. And the reason I know that is because one time I met a bunch of computer nerds in California, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, and that's like kind of one of the reasons I decided to do computers. Because I was like, I don't even know what those people are saying. So my last video was about like the stack data structure and like, but it was like about like what a stack is. Like when people are talking about it, because it's so confusing sometimes. Because someone will be like, "Oh, I'm using the lamp stack," and like then you go, "Wait, like what's the lamp stack?" It's Linux, Apache, MySQL, and and Python. So like when we talk about Python stack, like does Python have its own stack? Well, there's the Python execution stack. Like, and so like when we talk about the Java runtime engine, is that kind of a stack? I think it's a stack. Like, but like when we talk about Linux, Linux is a stack. Like in the LAMP stack, like LAMP stack is like for like internet servers. Like if you're going to a website, you're probably going to to an Apache server, like on a stack. And like so like when I talk about like computers being like confusing, like a lot of the time it's because like there are all these different servers, and like what are they? Like there are places that run code that like are like always running code. So like an internet server is like always running code so that it can accept your requests, like for like websites and stuff. Like you send it a website. I really wanted to do an HTTP request as a stack to do an example of like a stack request, but like with this one, I'm like connecting to a host, and like I have the host name. Like I'll tell it which port I want to go to. Like I'll tell it like the username of the router, and like there'll be like a password and stuff. And like I don't have to verify. I think that has to do with credentials, like having to do with like secure shell, which is encryption. Like I'm trying to connect to a CSR type router. So this is not using an HTTP request, but it is shooting an RPC, remote procedural call payload. So like when I'm sending that to the server, like the server is always on, and like it's like receiving things on that port in the router. And so like and I'll send XML, which XML is like a type of data. So like I can have like an XML file like on my computer, and like that's on the disk, that's not in memory, and like that file like stores like stuff like this. So like when I'm coding, like I'll have things in an object. Like here, like I have an object, and like this is an object, it's a JSON object. So like you can use like XML or JSON, but you can use other like ways of like saving your data, like YAML. And like but this would like when we talk about like JSON, which JavaScript object notation, like what does that mean? Like it's the way that objects are written in JavaScript. So like JavaScript is like what? Like it's like the web, it's like the language of the internet. It's like Java, but it's JavaScript. It's a scripting language, and like it's very powerful. Like you can do like very powerful things with JavaScript. And like I never write JavaScript, but like I studied it very hard like after college, because I tried to do React. But like so like we're looking at this object, and we're saying like that's an object. Like all the objects you show us like are named objects. Like here, you've got a process brain object. That's what you call it, with like a Yara brain object inside the object. And then like that registry persistence object is a vector of registry persistence objects. Like that's a vector with objects in it. Like and inside that registry persistence object, are there like vectors, and like what's a vector? It's like a string. It's immutable. Or it's not like a string. It's like an array. Like let's just call it an array. But like my point is like that's like in a name, like when you look at that Yara, like the name of the object is a Yara brain. But like this object that I have right here is a process brain object. But when we're looking at like JavaScript object notation, like that's like an unnamed object. So like there's an unnamed object like with longitude, like in it, that's like a dictionary of like with like of values, like of longitude, which is 47.6. It's got a latitude, it's got a forecast, and in the forecast there's an array of like it looks like a map or like a dictionary. I don't know what they call it, like objects, and like the date will have that. And so like I just found out that like inside like of the operating system there's like a built-in like data type, which is a date time data type, which is an important concept in programming, like the idea of date time. But the big thing is that it's like related data. Like it's like on this date, like there's a description, and like it meets like what a forecast would be. And so like under a forecast, I could do like 0, which would get you the first one, or I can do 1, which will get you the second one, and I can go through it and pull data out of it. So I failed, I think, at talking about data frames because I was like, well, this is like arrays, but it's not. It's an object. Like there are like pointers like connected to like the columns and the names. And like when I talked about it, like I feel like what I'm like not knowing about that is that it's actually a bunch of tuples, because like that 0 row, like will have like will be a tuple, I think, like when it's doing the processing probably. So in Python, there's a list and a tuple, and my understanding is that like a list is mutable and a tuple is immutable, and I think immutable objects are better like almost always. Like, and what is an immutable object? Like you like can't change that object, like just change overwrite the memory location. Like you have to like put in a new object. Like I think. But like when it's a tuple, it's just 2 values. So like a date could be 1 value, and then the next one could be the date, and then like a description could be 1 value, and then there's like a sunny. So like that could be like the way that tuples are set up. Clearly, when we're talking about data frames, like we're talking about like a number as one of the values in the tuple, like the index. Like there's 0, like it will always have a numbered index. Like even if you're not doing a data frame, like in pandas, you automatically like convert it to like something that could be used as a tuple. Like it automatically gives you index values, like when it's like an array, which is an array. I can't remember the name right now. But I think like that's an important thing to note, because like we're thinking about like why NumPy is so good, and like why like all these like big data people use pandas. And like what I would tell you is like it's about like the fact that you can handle large amounts of data. Like I've processed like 10 million value Excel sheets like with a data frame, and like it will never even like slightly work in Scala. And like you have to like quickly like realize you don't want your like your two-dimensional array to be like big. Like you want to like filter quick, like, oh, that array is big, I've got to like remove values, like I've got to remove columns. Like I realized it later, like I like was having heap overflows because like I wasn't getting the like I really do want to get down to the tuple level like while doing processing. Like the computer doesn't like doing like 3-dimensional or 2-dimensional like objects. Like it like naturally wants to be in the tuple format. And so when we're talking about like why it's so important to understand this, like we have like a value, like, and when we think about like SQL databases, which is like part of the stack, the LAMP stack, like or it's a part of like everyone's stack, like for like internet servers, we are. Everyone knows that we like care about like having like a name that's unique, like a unique identifier. So like one could be a unique identifier. Like we have like a customer ID. Like in memory, like we could have like a flag, like that's an example of a hexadecimal like value. Like if you watch my last video and you want to see an actual hexadecimal value, but that's like a TCP flag. That's like a what you would see in a packet, like to tell like the computer network stuff. It's saying like what type of packet it is, like if it's an ACK or a SYN or whatever. But we need a unique identifier, and like when we're talking about big data processing and like how you can like multi-thread stuff, and like what does it mean to like do distributed processing, like how can I like take this job, like because like what do we talk about when we're talking about like big data? We're talking about jobs that will run. Like I'll send out my job to this server, and this can run this part of the job, this server will run this part of the job, like, and you're trying to break up the math. I might be taking the transpose of this, and then I'll like do this on this server with like that, because it's going to be doing a bunch of math, and I might actually just do a copy. But like as long as the math doesn't depend on the other math, I can break it up. But like if you have to process this math first, you can't break it up. And like there are certain rules on it. It'll I don't even want to get close to like telling you about multi-thread. I'm just not going to do that. So yeah, my understanding is that computers like tuples, like, and that you don't want to go super like 3-dimensional, multi-dimensional with your data structures, even though like I can code that. You don't want to code like that.